Welcome to another exciting program at Kopi with Vans. That's right, this is your host Vans here, and I also have a guest speaker today with me to talk a topic on what does the youth of today truly wants. And I'm very delighted to inform all our viewers that we are also live in Spotify and podcast as well. So after this show, eventually, after 30 minutes or so, our podcast will be live as well. You can hear that. Right now, we are live in Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So, without any delay, I'm going to call my guest speaker, Yongsong. Hi,
Hi,
Yongsong.
good evening, Vans. Pleasure to be with here.
How are you there, buddy?
I'm great, doing great. Yeah,
Thank you. So, before we go on, maybe if you can just do a quick introduction about yourself to all our viewers, and also is going to our podcast as well.
sure. So, my name is Yongsong. I'm a fourth year undergraduate, a rising fourth year undergraduate in law and liberal arts. I'm currently enrolled in both Yale-NUS College as well as NUS Faculty of Law.
Thank you, Yong Song. So that was a very good introduction about yourself. So yes, so we are in this topic today of what does the youth of today truly want. So just to get a little bit of warm up, before before you start an exercise program, you always do a warm up, right? So we're just going to do a warm up. So right now, you're what? How many years have you been studying all the way? Without any break?
Well, you're talking about since primary school, right? Wow, need
Yeah.
to do some. Yeah. So adding up primary, secondary, so that would be uh 12 plus 4 years. I mean,
Yeah.
not counting 2 years in NS lah.
Okay.
That's like 16 years or 15 years in total of being in
Okay.
the education system.
Thank you. How has it been like? I mean, without a break, I know you have just completed. I mean, not say you just completed, you completed your NS, and now you're on the fourth year, right? And I also know that you're also doing a double degree. Double. How is that possible? People doing one degree already, they are stressed, especially nowadays, youth, right? You look at them, they're already so stressed up, in coping up. How do you able to manage with double degree?
Right. So I think so mentioning NS, it did serve as a good break lah, because I think if I went straight into university right after JC, I think that might I'm not sure how that would turn out. I really appreciate having a 2 year break. And fortunately, I think university breaks are much longer, 3 months. I think the intensity in university is much higher than that in the earlier stages of my education. So I do appreciate having a longer summer break, which I am on right now. Speaking of double degree, right? It does sound much tougher. And yes, when I first got in the program, I did feel a bit intimidated by it. But fortunately for me, it's a 2 degree spread out over 5 years. I think the school did a fantastic job of like pacing out the courses such that we do not like burn ourselves entirely. I think there are certain semesters we have to overload, like take extra classes over the normal load, and we do struggle quite a bit sometimes. But I think overall, like I'm fortunate enough to be in very wonderful and supportive learning environment with friends out there for just emotional support as well. So I think that's how I keep up lah. Just cope with all the craziness of the pace of the education system.
Okay. So I think we have already done the warm up already, right? You're already warmed up. So we'll go dive into the topic. I mean, all the best for your double degrees. Today is going to be a very inspiring topic today about youth, because nowadays we can see a lot of youth are getting into issues, especially like anxiety, depression. Sometimes they even go into a little, detour, not focusing, losing focus and kind of stuff. So we're going to go into that. Thank you, viewers. If you're watching these, we are live at Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. You can listen them from Kopi with Vans. We are going into the topic, the changing trend. Youngson, I mean, you like what we spoke earlier. I mean, the number of years that you have calculating earlier on, that shows that you lost count of your education. What do you see in the current era of the students or even the youth compare these 5 years or 7 years when you were studying? What do you see a change in the trend?
Right. I think across the years, one very important change in terms of how youth expectation or like how basically how the youth behave and how the youth think, I guess it's really very much influenced by technological change, right? And also like just the general exposure to information is just increasing as we go to the younger generations. I think if you're talking about the Gen Zs, for example, which is people born either after 1995 or the 2000s, this is the generation of children who are raised in the age of the internet.
That's right.
We grew up having access to a really just a plethora of information sources out there, Wikipedia, Google, they're all available to us. So I guess this does make the youth today much more well-informed as opposed to like their parents' generation or grandparents' generation. Of course, also, I think especially in Singapore, the youth today are privileged enough to have enjoyed material comforts which the preceding generations didn't have. So not having to worry about just feeding, like living, like growing up in poverty or having to like support the family. I think all this gives a lot more room for the youth to focus on their personal development. So I think all this added up together definitely develops a generation that has a very kind of a very different outlook from what came before. But that being said, I do. Yeah,
but do
sorry.
we
Yes.
agree that past 10 years ago and versus right now, technology has changed. The amount of education has improved. The way the methods now, look at it over the past 2 years when the pandemic kicks in, already kicked in us in the bud. But we all be in virtual. With so much of technology, why even though the trend is becoming greater and better for the youth, but somehow or other, do you think the youth is also able to adapt to it?
Right. So I think that you hit the like basically I think that's the crux of the issue, right? Like, are we despite the youth being more well informed, are we still keeping up with the rapid change that's happening? And actually, personally I think I don't think so, actually, right? Because like you compare like the amount of technological change that happened just within like this past decade with what came before. I mean, the pace is so much. It is really crazy because like you have when you have like new jobs you have jobs that's going extinct. You have new jobs popping up every 1 or 2 years. New industries that is just emerging. And new apps, new platforms that's just popping up. If you ask me 10 years ago when I still in secondary school, whether I wanted to be, what I wanted to be, I couldn't have imagined that being a TikTok influencer or being a
Okay.
crypto trader could have been an option, right? So
Yeah.
it's rapid changes that we are all like kind of like trying to grapple with. But at the same time, I don't think the human species have evolved as such, can evolve at such a pace to keep up with these technological changes. So you have this new technology coming in, and it's kind of overwhelming us. But I think biologically, we are all kind of like figuring out and struggling to like keep up and find a healthy equilibrium in terms of dealing with them, I guess. Yeah, that's my personal take on it.
Yongsong, I know this topic, right? What does the youth of today truly want? We can just go in segments like season 1, season 2, season 3, because there's so much of
Yeah,
things to understand, right? When I compare my youth, even though I'm not youth anymore, you can see all the beard coming up. Back about 20 years back, or even 30 years back, the kind of technology what we had, like what we are. I mean, we have not met, but it seems like the synchronization between the both of us is so good because of virtual is there. So the trend has improved. Technology has improved so much. But if the youth able to cope up with that and adapt to the changes, I think they are. But also we know that these words are happening. I'm OTW, LOL. Nowadays trend also is changing. So the communication part also dropping. What do you think on that aspect? Because as we are still in the changing trend right now.
I personally think that that's not too bad a development, including the use of emojis. I think I do see a lot of language purists out there be like, oh, the youth today don't know how to write properly anymore, using all these short forms and emojis, these weird icons. What do they even mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just think that this is part of a natural evolution of like languages and also like just how humankind has developed over the years, right? But it's just like shrunk into a much shorter
Yeah.
time frame.
That's
as
right.
compared to like the larger part of history, right? Because I mean, I just see these phrases, for instance, maybe eventually of being officially incorporated English language, for instance. I mean, if you could zoom back 200, 300 years, I mean, English is a language that incorporated so many language over the years. And I mean, you can't say that distill it to like, oh, these are the original English that originated in England. They incorporated French, incorporated even Chinese words over the years. So I do see, as we give it maybe a decade or two more, I think this would become like the accepted standard of English. I think you'll maybe
So,
enjoy that.
so you think that probably in another 10 years' time, the trend has changed and people won't talk anymore. Oh, OTW, LOL, FYI, IS, ICU. So it's like all like short words, and it's going to be. I think we got to change as parents, as adults. I think we got to change towards the youth way of trends, right? Probably we agree with that.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. But at the same time, I don't think we are alien to it completely, right? I mean, our grandparents' generation, they'll be all speaking their own dialects, their own different like regional languages. Then suddenly the next generation, our parents' generation, will be speaking in the official mother tongues. Then it came to us where like most of us were conversing to each other in English right now, right? To make all this type of like intercultural, interracial engagement possible. So now moving forward with emojis and all these short abbreviations, common acronyms, maybe that's what brings the youth of the world, like brings populations across the world together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's as a shared common language.
All right.
So I do
So
see
we
that as a
agree.
positive
It will
development.
change. It will definitely change, right? All right. Thank you, Yongsong, because right now we already have a few viewers that's already been asking us questions already. I definitely going to take that for sure. Tulika and Nirgu Vanadi. If I pronounce your name wrongly. Um, but 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 we're going to take another one more a question right now, and then before we jump into that thing. Um, so what a youth really want? I mean, what do they really want, right? Parents are facing a lot of issues. Teachers sometimes also having a lot of challenges. What a youth really wants? So where can we go by? Where can we start? What is the comparison, or rather what were you before and now, and what do you see?
So I think there's two parts of my answer to that. The first part, I mean, my intuitive answer is actually the youth today, they are not wanting things that are drastically different on a very like basic level from what youth of the yesteryears wanted. I think, for example, I can like the youth today want to be heard. They want their voices to matter. They want to be able to explore themselves, discover the world. I think these are aspirations that every youth from these are timeless aspirations that youth across different generations they all aspire to do. After all, I think a lot of like activism, a lot of like very optimistic movements kind of are started by youth because of that youthful energy that we have seen across history. But at the same time, the second part of my answer is yes, I do recognize that because of the technological changes that we outlined earlier, the tangible things, the tangible outcomes that that the youth today might be looking towards, even though they might fulfill that same big idea that youth across the ages want, might be drastically different. For instance, our grandparents' generation, they might be their final goal, what they're looking forward is really like they start a family early on, maybe in their 18, like when they're 18, 19 or early 20s. And their whole goal in their youth, the hope that they're striving towards was to provide a family. We can't say that of the youth today. I mean, now with the expectation that
Yeah.
most youth, we have to complete our formal education, go to university to get, and after that, but at the same time, with all this information and all this exposure to different ways of living life and a deeper contemplation about what it means to live fully, live out our full potential, I think the youth today have much more varied ideas of what they want.
True.
So I don't profess to be a spokesperson for all youth also, but I do reckon, but I do think that the youth today, I think what the youth want today comes in like many more forms, like
Right.
kind of like so many more forms than what the youth of yesteryears want, which makes it much more complicated picture, I guess.
So I'm going to take this viewer's comment here. Thank you, Nirgumardi. She said that the rapid changes and increase in complexity of today's world present new challenges and put new demands on our education system. There has been generally a growing awareness of the necessity to change and improve the preparation of students for productive functioning in the continuing changing highly demand environment. So I think she also saying that agreeing that students these days facing difficulties on adapting to the challenges of changes. Comparison to us, like for me, there wasn't any technology at that time. Probably we were using pagers. Yongsong, do you know what a pager is?
I've seen one before, yes. At least. So not that young to like, not know what
So if you go
it
to
is.
page me, probably you will get a reply after 3 hours because I'll be in the bus. But I know, oh, Yongson has paged me because there will be a number that we use from our landline. And then after that, we move to the zone phone, right? So you have a
Mm.
phone, but that can be only used in certain neighborhoods or certain areas where the zone is. So you can't be using the phone. You can have the phone in with you, but then you're like, okay, where is the zone? So you need to be in that zone to use the zone. So technology really has improved, right? With so much of technology in the phone, alarm, your calendar, your memo, your synchronization of your office, your emails, everything in just a single piece of equipment or machine or product. But like we mentioned again, right? As the youth dare to dream, they are ready to explore a lot of stuff that what I wasn't able to do that when I was 30 years back. But I totally agree with you. Things are changing rapidly, and the youth also must able to adapt it quickly and move on. But the next one I'm going to post is the kind of stress they are going through in the hardship in education and peer pressure, especially peer pressure, seems to be a big thing right now, right? If example, if a kid is doing something, that parent or that kid also wants to do the same thing or even more better than that. So there's always a competition. What do you your take in this?
Yeah, I do think that this is a trend that has only intensified in recent years. Um, I like to put it very simply how I see kind of like the challenges that you face over the years. Um, how it evolved is that I think in the past, the youth's main struggle probably would be much more material, much more tangible. It has to do with like their physical well-being, whether they are able to kind of like support the family and all that, like just be able to, they're in survival
Yeah.
mode, but especially in the earlier days of our independence, where things weren't as like
Mm,
comfortable as it is now. So right now we do have the material comforts, and my generation has we are brought up under such a privileged environment. But I think what has compounded and what has worsened over the years is really like that mental. It's like kind of like a deterioration of mental health across the board. Um, I think I can imagine a lot of like the older folks maybe rolling their eyes and it's like, yeah, that's because your generation is strawberry generation and they are not resilient and whatever. But I want to put it in context again with what we have mentioned about technological change. The youth today are being brought up in a very different environment where they're constantly bombarded with information, bombarded with expectations also that comes naturally when you're living in a comfortable environment and a developed nation. And so I think it does compound over time. So it has moved away from a very like physical concerns to much more like uh, something that comes from within, that there's something that clicks the inside of the mind. Kind of it's a mental issue now. So hardships and kind of like I think their content in our curriculums have increased because we're dealing with a much complex world right
yeah.
now also. Peer pressure has also increased. Again, I think because there's that drive to where like with parents having been educated themselves, wanting their child to do better than them, and also wanting their child to have the best possible future. Uh, and kind of like that compounded with the fact that I think how our system is set up is that it's kind of it can be might seem like a zero sum game sometimes from the national exams, whether you meet the cutoff point or not. If you get an opportunity, someone else loses it. I think all this add up together. It does contribute to a very like rat race like uh, environment where the kids today, where the youth of today is kind of like brought up. Like.
But do you think parent plays a very important part in this, in putting so much of pressure? Because I'm going to say what exactly has happened before the pandemic. I went to my kid's school for collecting results, right? So I was seeing, usually you can see all the tears happening. Some are tears of joy, some are tears of result that is a bit low. So there was so much of mixed emotions in that hall. But literally, I saw one parent just standing there and screaming at the child, from
Oh,
the top to bottom, and the child is like feeling depressed. I can actually view it, right? Because the kind of energy that I feel from far, yelling and yelling and yelling. And so it's like a bit of a very, what should I say? A lot of people are seeing, you feel so embarrassed. But do you think parents are nowadays too hard as well towards the kids? You got to take 100 upon 100. Why do you take 99 upon 100? Why? Where's the one mark? They're so stressed about the one mark. Because why? The another student got 100 upon 100. And then particularly this student got 98 upon 100. Do you think parents are putting so much of stress on the kids?
so I do think a lot, like parents do constitute a big source of stress on the children. In terms of how this parental pressure manifests, I think the anecdote that you related earlier, actually that might even be a bit more old school already in
Yeah.
terms of like scolding or like caning, physical
Yeah.
beating, in terms of like if you're not doing well for exam. I think now it has evolved actually, right? It has evolved into something else. I think the generation of where the kids that were kind of like scolded or beaten from young, they have become parents themselves, and they might be thinking, I don't want to do that to my children.
Yeah.
But the expectation for their kids does not go away, and actually it kind of like manifests in a different form of pressure that's kind of like
Mhm.
more encompassing. So a very simple example is like now parents are sending children, I mean, they can afford to send their children to more classes, enrichment classes, tuition, and all this just keeping the children more occupied is another form of stress, added pressure. Because in a sense, like you think about it, you're taking away the child's free time to do other things and kind of like reserving this block of time where the child has to concentrate on nothing else but studies. The implied message in this is really saying that yes, academics is the most important. The studies is what you should be absolutely focusing your attention on.
Mhm.
And actually, if you take it up a whole new level, with DSA, we like to talk about DSA being something of a great leveler of opportunities where students are not academically inclined, but they're talented in sports or music. They can also have a equal shot at, say, like the most coveted institutions. But I think this has also evolved in recent years, and that's something I've been noticing where parents now add additional expectation on children to be good at not just studies, but also sports, also music. You
Yeah.
need additional talent in order to be kind of like that perfect child that kind
But
of be able
but
to.
but Yongsoo, there will be a little bit of mixed emotion here as well. I mean, we can say that because parents once said, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I cannot. So never mind. I want my son to be a lawyer. But
Yeah.
eventually, that particular youth have a different exploration about life. Probably he have something in his mind, but because of parent pressure, you know um if you love to do something, I think probably you will conquer it. But if you don't love to do something, probably you will just do it because it has been forced upon. So there's a big difference in that. So is it because parents, they want the best for the child? We want best for the child. I want her to get 100 marks. If you can get 101, I'll be very happy. Those sort of thing that putting a lot of pressure on the kid, and then the kid goes under a tremendous stress. Nowadays you look at a kid, right? Because they're so focused in studies, the social life has been reduced or minimized, I gotta say. If you look at them, they're just walking within their pace. They're looking very nerdy, of course. They're very, very polite. They're just like looking down, very shy. Probably they're not been exposed. Eh, Is it really necessary for a kid to grow up, and that can be the character of that particular kid, and then how the particular kid is going to face the world. I mean, probably the kid has double degree or 4 degrees or 5 degrees, but he can't face the world. So are we missing that element here? Because we always talk about work-life balance, but for kids, they are forgetting about the joy about playing and enjoying, as a fun. They're missing all that. Do you think it will be a impact in the upcoming 10, 20 years?
Yeah, so to address the point that you brought up earlier, right, about parents, perhaps it's because like parents are also why they have expectations for the kids to do well is because like they missed out on certain opportunities and they want their kids to have these opportunities. I do agree with you on that. I think and that constitutes a lot of kind of expectations that a lot of you face today. But I think to address the other part of your question, right, is like, are we missing something in terms of like, are parents missing something in terms of their upbringing of our kids? I do think that, okay, yeah, it might be unfair to characterize all parents in this
Yeah.
way. I do see good examples of parenting where like they do make the effort to give their child space to
Yeah.
explore. For instance, my own parents, upon reaching secondary school, they kind of just let go. They stopped asking me about my academics, asking for my
Okay.
grades, and they allowed me to choose which secondary school I wanted to go to, and also like what CCAs I wanted to participate in. So from that point onwards, I felt I had complete freedom in making my decisions in the academic sphere. So I felt having that sense of control is very important, because I think the child then feels empowered to kind of like try out the things that he want to do. But at the same time, most importantly, I think then he'll be really invested and passionate in doing these things that he or she chooses to do. Are most parents kind of missing the point on this? I think I hope to see, perhaps as like the newer parents that are kind of like slowly sending their kids to school, they do realize this, and they also like shift towards giving their kids more space. But as you mentioned, I do see this as a problem, including just around me and also at my juniors, kind of like what their parents expect of them, what their parents kind of like force them to go through. I do see that as a problem, as like I do see helicopter parenting as being a problem of like kind of like caging the students in to something that don't and kind of depriving them of like the joys of youth or childhood, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Yongsong. So now we were just here from Tulika. She said she has asked, "What is a successful life for you, Yongsong?"
Well, that is such a profound question, and I think this might take an entire day for me to like just. But okay, I personally don't see success in the conventional way, like in terms of fame, money, or like material needs. Personally, for me, a successful life, I guess, would be one where I'm able to I'm able to find peace with myself. I'm able to like create my happiness in my own life journey, and also kind of like create happiness for those around me, people around me. I deliberately scope my my definition of success so small, because I think while setting like very ambitious goals for what success looks like, I think that is commendable. And at some point, perhaps in my professional career, I will indeed do that. But I think at this point, this is what I feel allows me to give control over my own life. This is kind of like a reasonable thing to ask from myself. And I also don't think it's kind of overly complicated and too affected by like the material desires that we want, in a sense. Because I think being attached to all these very like tangible things might not be as meaningful, because in the long run, like these material things might be gone. But I think, to me, it's my well-being as well as the people around me that kind of like will stay with me throughout my entire lifetime. So I choose to focus more on the people.
Wow,
And
that's a
well-being.
great wisdom words that you have shared, Yongsong. I think that's really a great wisdom, because right now Nowadays, you see, success is always about fame, money, properties. I got 7 cars. I got 5 houses. You know,
Yeah.
like you put it in a very nice and beautiful way. I got to say that, that it's ever, ever exploring, right? It's about well-being. Thank you so much. We also have, but I'm going to take this question because I think you have just completed national service as well. I think I've completed my national service and my reservist for the past 10 years. I don't want to do it anymore. Not say that I don't want to do anymore, but I've done with it. Age is catching up. So we give the younger generation to come up with. But of course, this is a little interesting because she has asked. Okay, so Indian government is trying to introduce something similar on lines of a national service, but there are a lot of protests. What do you feel is the right balance of studies, degrees, and NS? What's your advice to Indian youth?
Wow, this is this is another very good
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, but
We're asking these questions to you because you are upcoming rising, lawyer.
oh dear.
The fourth year undergrad in law.
For the horse, but okay.
Yeah,
If I were to take a stab at that question, I'll just speak from personal experience. I can speak from my personal experience in being through NS, and perhaps maybe you can take whatever you want to take out of and apply it to the Indian context. I found national service, as much as I think we all dreaded it as we went through it, it was really beneficial. Just having a 2 year break away from studies and giving us a lot more like time to really focus on ourselves, personal development, and really work on interpersonal skills. I think that is a very key part of like why people like to say that it's a boys to men process.
yeah,
Why it's a process of maturing? It's because you are suddenly thrust in a position where you have to take on adult responsibilities. Even if you are not holding any like leadership positions, you are still in charge of something. At the very minimum, you're in charge of a gun. Or if you're not in the combat service, you're in charge of a task, an administrative task that might be very important for a unit to function. I think being confronted with that and being confronted with having to deal with people, other individuals in life and death situations for some vocations, or people from very different backgrounds. I think this is a very eye-opening experience for anyone that has to go through it. I think I wouldn't be reached like where I am right now in terms of like my insights about kind of like my outlook about the world had I not been through NS. I think it did allow me to approach university in a much more like self-disciplined fashion. Not sure, but I guess it did prepare me for university, and also like taking it on, and also being mentally prepared for what lies beyond university, just because of like this kind of like the first moment where we kind of have the force to become adults. So I do appreciate having that process. I won't go into the details of how good NS is for the country or whatever, but just personally, I think that's great. I think if any youth can go through a process that's similar to that, I think that'd be very beneficial for their own personal growth. Yeah.
we can already send all the wisdom right now, Yongsong. You're going to be a very successful lawyer. The way you answer, the way you talk, I think you have that right frame of mind, answering that. But Tolika, national service is such a beautiful thing. I got to say, of course, the sergeant, the push-ups, the hard trainings, that's all aside. But in terms for a male, right, the kind of a maturity, I do not know what happened. They will say that you go to NS, you will become better, you become responsible because we got to iron our clothes, we got to wash our clothes, you got to dry up your boots. So I think Yongsong, talking a little bit on the training side, I think these are the things that actually has made us man from youth to man. Do you agree that as well?
I do agree. But equally, I think it might apply equally to women as well, right? I think unpopular stance that perhaps like women should also serve national service, but maybe not in the military. Perhaps they should
Mm.
open up more vocations that are kind of like suit to the various needs of different individuals. But I do think this is a very essential. This is a very this is an important milestone in personal development of any youth that has to go through it. So I do agree. It, at least for me, it did turn me from a boy to a man. At least like in part, not if not in full. Yeah.
So there's definitely a transition. I do not know what's the transition. I mean, for all the women out there who wants to know what happened in the national service, I can tell you it's a lot of stuff. We probably don't have one day to talk about it, right? There's so much of things. The responsibility will kick in. Like what Yongsong has said, you'll be doing a lot of roles that is very crucial for the platoon, for the unit, and so on and so forth. So I think automatically the maturity comes in. You tend to have a little bit of change in the character, the attitude, probably the development of your brain. Probably then only start working. Okay, I need to be serious. So that is now it's 2.5 years, right? Uh, great job, guys, for those who are going in now to serve their national service. Yes, thank you, Tavania. Yes, I agree. Women should do NS also. Yeah, probably you should be the first one to go in and give it a try. She's a very tough lady as well. Thank you, Tavania. We're going to take a little bit more of but okay, maybe I just want to take a little bit of a questions from the viewers, because a lot of questions is coming in. Parents are confusing themselves between academic achievements and behavior conditioning. Current parenting focus more of the latter, failing of the behavioral and life skills. So yeah, we're talking about life skills, right? I mean, if you look at our school, Yongsun, I mean, of course it's great. Where we are right now is thankful to the teachers and a lot of other teachers. I mean, for yourself as well, who they are. But do you think the life skills is also been not taught? Because we always talked about getting the certifications and educations all piling up, but in terms of life skills not being exposed. Do you think that will be a right statement to say that?
I think that's actually a more tricky question than it seems, because I do think that perhaps more could be done to inculcate life skills in our students. What I'm not so sure about is whether it can be taught in a classroom context. I think certain basics, for example, like personal finance, I think that can be taught, at least introduced to students. I think concepts can be introduced, like life skill concepts can be introduced to students.
Yeah.
But ultimately, because it's called life skills, you have to bring it to your own life. You have to walk the talk and like apply it in order for it to like you to truly internalize it in a sense. I personally think maybe the answer to that is really in giving more space to students to really figure out these things, instead of like being overly controlling, over engineering what the child should go through, the type of development journey the child should go through. If the child is being put in a position where everything is planned out for them, where like they know the schedule for all 7 days of the week, all 24 hours kind of already planned out by the parents, going from class to class without thinking much of what goes in between and what goes behind this process, then I think there's no chance that any of these life skills will develop, because there's no time for the child to reflect on that experience and like think about like does it take for me to organize my life. So I do think, and I think in general, I do think that giving more freedom and space to the youth, giving more space to the children is essential if you want to develop a more holistic individual. Because like kind of like learning takes place themselves. You might not trust them, but it will happen. I mean, they might make mistakes and whatever, but they also learn through those. So long as you provide, I think so long as certain like guardrails are kind of like set up, but that doesn't overly stifle their freedom and creativity, I think that might be the most ideal condition for them to really develop these life skills.
As we speak right now, all the youth will love you, Yongsun, for saying that. Youth should be given space. Let them explore. Let them fall. Let them experience. But of course, parents, I think we should guide them, our kids. But I think, like what you said, overpowering them. I mean, I understand, because the world is ever changing. It's become a very competitive world. It's becoming very hardships are there. It's not going to be bed of roses. It's going to be a lot of bed of thorns. I got to say that. But let our kids explore a bit. Try to pull them like a kite. But if you're going to control them, they're going to put a lot of pressure. Because why am I saying this statement? Because we have another viewer who just said that you are so lucky, but not all students or kids having this opportunity most of them, the parent decide what they should study and who they be in future. Most parents make their kids to pursue their dream which they can't achieve. So as a parent, I can't achieve something, I want to push it towards my kids. And due to this, most of the kids are going through high level of depressions. And we also see that because they are becoming very quiet, they not sociable, the social is not there, probably they are not even exploring a lot of stuff. And I think that is one of the issues, right? I mean, we can't see as a whole, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I guess one message I have perhaps would be like, maybe to parents out there is, if you feel like you want your child to achieve certain dreams that you might have
Yeah.
had from your own childhood, perhaps, one important thing to keep in mind is that those dreams might not even might no longer be viable, given how things are changing again. We always assume doctor, lawyer as kind of like the most lucrative jobs out there. But just look at what happened in the past few years. The most lucrative jobs now have become like computer science, big data, big tech, even crypto, all these jobs that didn't exist from kind of like the childhoods of like previous generations. So kind of like what I guess every parent wants the best for their child. I guess in terms of like how, I think the I think the essence of it is just that every parent want their child to be able to thrive, be able to like do well, be comfortable for the rest of their lives, so that they don't have to worry about them. There's no need to dictate like how that trajectory would take. Prescribing a occupation, prescribing a way or means of getting there to this final goal, which is like just flourishing of life, is not necessary. And that includes like occupation, what school your child should go to. All these I guess it might be a form of over engineering already in this day and age, because you really cannot predict in the next 1 or 2 years will another COVID happen, will another new technology emerge that might upend all these plans. All this might be, the playbook has to be constantly thrown out repeatedly. And I think so long as at the end of the day you do have the best interest of your child at heart, just I think it would be good to give some space, again, back to my earlier point, to like allow the child some agency to make their own life decisions, so long as they don't veer way off the path to become really someone unrecognizable. I think that should be encouraged. Yeah.
Well said that, Yongsong. For definitely, I say it again. Second time, I'm saying all the youth will love you. They will start to look up for you, for saying that. I mean, it's very pleasing to the ears to hear that, coming from a youth, becoming from teenager, from a youth, then now you're man, now you are in the. I mean, it's a great word. I got to say, it's all wisdom here. And another issue that's a lot of time parents they say, why can't they listen to me? Why they can't listen to the parents? Why? What is the rationale behind this?
I think we already heard several threats that we mentioned earlier, but I think firstly, I guess, like, I don't think it's that uncommon for youth to not listen to their parents across the different generations also, right? I think it's well known that in the teenage years, everyone goes through a rebellious phase. I mean, because they desire independence, they desire freedom to explore. So, and perhaps that explains a big part of it. But I think another part of it, again, is what I mentioned earlier about exposure to information. Again, maybe there are certain pieces of advice coming from the older generations that the youth might perceive to be like outdated, or might not apply as well in today's context. I guess, again, for instance, it's like I did 4 years ago, I did relief teaching back at Hwa Chong, and I have like some of my juniors telling me that, my teacher just told me that I need to decide on what career I need to what career I need to go into right now in secondary school. In my mind, my response was just, how is that possible? Again, as we mentioned, things are changing. Like, all these careers might vanish by the time they graduate. Things are changing so fast. we as in this how advice, maybe it worked for a good 20 or 30 years before this, but now it really is kind of like on shaky ground. So perhaps it's because they perceive these advice, including me, I perceive these advice to be kind of like less viable in today's age, and that is why like we are kind of like more selective in terms of like what do we want to take from parents and what we would prefer like resulting to other sources for reliable information. But I do want to say that I do think there is value in the wisdom of older generations. I think there are certain things that are just timeless lah. For example, like just dealing with kind of just dealing with life's challenges, dealing with relationships, dealing with like personal hardship. All this, I think our parents' generation or like just the elders, they have so much to offer us. Yeah, personally, I mean, I go to my mom for counsel whenever I'm feeling down or whatever, and so I do still see value in that, and I do think a lot of youth, they do see that too. It's just, I guess, depending on what stage of life the child is, they might not like express it more like outwardly lah. But I think deep down we all feel the same way about what our parents our parents like genuine advice to us. Yeah.
Well said, Yongsong. I mean, we are in 45 minutes of talk on the topic of what does the youth of today truly want. With me is Yongsong. We are going on a great conversation right now, almost 47 minutes, and we are live at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We are in LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook as well. We are just talking about youth. So if you do have any particular question, please ask us, and then we can try to ask our brilliant Yongsong here to answer a few of these questions. So right now we talk about the youth. We are coming back to the parent again. Nowadays parents are overly protected. That's the problem. So anything the kid always look upon to the parent. I mean, that's fine. But are we teaching them a life skills like we already talked about? But in terms of educations or even after they get married, sometimes they're also overly protected. They're also overly getting involved in everything. Do you think this is necessary as well?
Yeah, I think that's good. Going back to whatever we just discussed, I do
Yeah.
agree, right? That I think a lot of parents these days, they kind of try to over engineer their children's development pathway. But I think there's another aspect which I think that there is, it's just impossible. Like that the parents is just they just cannot protect the kids from. I mean, as much as you try to like want to like insulate the child from all these like the dangerous world out there, the fact is, again, because of technological change, the youth of today always have access to new forms of technology, new forms of information that the parents are unfamiliar with, and they'll access it regardless or not you try to impose like kind of like barriers in between them and that platform. So I guess that mindset of wanting to be helicopter parents, be like all encompassing over like what the child is going through, as if like you're like a terrarium or something, like the child is a plant growing in it. I think that's really getting increasingly impossible. But what instead is, again, perhaps it's possible in the early years of the child's upbringing. But again, once the child reach youth, I think that's where like there needs to be space to be given to them for them to flourish. And I think we all need to adopt the mindset that we need to be prepared that the child might make mistakes, they might fail, they might fall down in a way, sometimes pretty badly. But I think just being mentally prepared for that and not trying to think too much about trying to preempt or prevent them from making these mistakes, making this failure. I think that's crucial. I think that's a crucial mindset shift that needs to happen in order for us to really allow the youth to like realize their potential and like flourish.
And also, I think Yongsong, I think adding to that, or rather echo to that, I think parents are overly protecting their kid. And then when the kid faces a failure, the kid not able to cope up with that mechanism, because right now, because everything is seen as a success, right? Because the parent is there to protect, everything is comfort, especially in the place that we live right now, right? Everything is safe, everything is protected, everything is there for as a guideline, as a process. But here we have another viewer who asked us, do you see more and more Singapore youth joining the government and making policies and laws for the future Singapore?
That's a very interesting question because so interestingly, when I'm talking to my friends who are kind of like going to join the government service soon, either because they're on scholarship and are bonded, or like because they aspire to go in there,
Yeah.
because of the explosion of career options out there, there are much more high-paying jobs, very lucrative careers that looks very fun and enjoyable and meaningful. They're out there in the private sector. I do see a big chunk of my scholar friends thinking, like contemplating whether they should even like serve out that bond, or should they just like break the bond and then join a big tech company and then hoping a
Mhm.
company will pay them out. I think increasingly, because of the options are made available, you kind of have this interesting dynamic where like the traditional group of people that the government seeks to attract, like which is they always say that we want to attract the best people, the best and brightest students to join the service, they are facing competition. They're facing significant stiff competition from the private sector, which kind of like is sucking away a lot of these talent. But at the same time, you do see like the government also changing. They're creating new agencies, for example, GovTech, which is dealing specifically with like technological change and also like getting involved in technological innovation. That is a response to whatever changes that's happening out there in private sector. So I guess it's two-way. There's no like, I can't say simply that the youth are that there's an increasing trend of youth wanting to join government or that wanting to like not join government. I think it remains to be seen how this plays out in the long term, because right now I think it's very much in a state of flux. Because these are two very viable options out there, both providing very like kind of like attractive career progression pathways. So I think our generation is kind of spoiled for choice right now. But I think if I go even deeper about, I guess what this question is asking is like, are youth today concerned about the direction of where Singapore is going? Maybe like the kind of certain passion about like social issues that Singapore is facing. I think most definitely so. Especially if you walk around, if you look at kind of like the activity that's happening on social media platforms, the number of Instagram, like socially conscious, environmentally conscious Instagram pages that have popped up in this past few years, you'll see that actually the youth today care very much about where society is going, where politics is going, and also where the climate crisis is going. So again, this is a function of like this is an effect of like the youth being much more better informed, much more connected to what's happening around the world. So which make them like much more passionate about these topics. So no matter where they go, these are the topics in terms of their career. These are the topics that they are very interested in, they are deeply passionate about.
It's an amazing 53 minutes, Yongsong, to have a great conversation with Kopi with Vans. I think we have covered pretty much all the questions from the viewers and also a few questions that prepared for you. I think you have answered it in such a manner that it is just marvelous, right? You are the rising star of a great lawyer in what, in another 2 years' time?
Oh, I dare not take out the mental, but okay. Yeah.
You're humble. Great. We talked a lot of stuff about being a parent, being a youth, what are the challenges faced, and we have a lot of great comment session from the viewers as well. We talked about that, and we answered a couple of that. Thank you, viewers. We are in Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and for the past 55 minutes with Yongsong, the rising fourth year undergrad in law and liberal arts from Yale-NUS College and NUS Law, having a great conversation with him. We are almost coming up. We just have 5 more minutes. So now we're going to do the warm down. So you see, I'm coming from the fitness background, all right? I'm a fitness coach. So I did the warm up. I did the main part of the program exercise. Now we need to do the warm down. All right. So we need to bring the we need to bring the pressure down, the blood pressure, try to relax, breathe, and breathe out. All right. So yeah, Youngson, so tell us, what is your future? I mean, what have you aimed for? I mean, are you going to go into the private practice? Are you going to go to the government sector? Or are you going to, what are you going to do? Are you still going to study more? Now we know that you're already doing double degree. It's wow, it's really remarkable. Very remarkable. What are your plans?
Given I said in the past hour or so about rapid changes, I'm also taking my future in like kind of like bite-sized chunks. So I'm kind of like pre-planning at only 2-3 years in advance right now at the moment. For me, because I have the privilege of being single and not just I can just focus on like my individual goals and aspirations for now. Uh, I do intend to go into practice, get qualified, get called to the bar, and work have at least 2-3 years of working experience in the legal industry before I look at whether I want to before I make a decision on whether I should stay on or maybe like pivot to another industry altogether. Because I think many of us have been reading on the news that there's a very high lawyer attrition right now. People are since the COVID struck, lawyers have been quitting their jobs en masse. I think that's a big problem in terms of like the problems of like toxic work environment and very demanding workplace kind of like stresses that the kind of legal industry is kind of grappling with right now. I hope those kind of like get addressed to a significant degree by the time I join the industry. But if I leave the industry, it's also because I do have other interests out there. I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and also like the business side of things. So I do hope that law is a very versatile degree at the end of the day that allows me to transition into many different other industries and explore different areas at the end of the day. So I think my possibilities are kind of like it's quite limitless as far as I can tell right now. So ask me again in maybe 5 years.
but, but I got to say this, after today's show, we are going into podcasts, right? Spotify and Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You never know. Some law corporate, might just call you up and say, Yongsun, sign the papers. You want to graduate, join us directly. You never know, right? We got to manifest. You spoke very well. It seems like I'm speaking to a lawyer right now, not even an undergraduate, because the way you explained, the way you put it up, things, it's very deep. It has a very great meaning and a purpose to it, and I'm sure viewers also liking it. And probably you look at that, they're already asking you questions regarding about government, looking at policies. They even talk about globalization, talking about countries. So I think you did a very great job today, Yongsun. Congrats.
Thank you. I do hope that I think my sharing kind of like added value to I guess all the viewers and listeners out there, just like shedding light on the kind of like youth perspective to all these issues.
And youth will definitely love you for saying give them space. Youth will definitely, those youth who are listening to this right now, you definitely will love Yongsun, because he said that parents should relax a little bit, give their children a little bit of leeway, let them explore, let them fall down and come up. You just guide them. He's spoken very well. I think it's a great upbringing of your parents as well. I think the way they have brought you up, the trust, and like what you shared, after a certain period of time, what, you make the choice, we are there to support. I think it's brilliant. It's great. Thanks to your parents as well for such a product of you right now speaking to us, Yongsun.
Definitely. Always very grateful and indebted to them for whatever they have done for me all these years. Yeah.
All right, so we are coming to the end of the Kopi With Vans. Any last wise word or wisdom words that you want to say in a nutshell of what we have spoke for the past 1 hour?
I guess like the parting message would just be I guess like there's more in common than we think there is between the youth of today as well as like the older generations. Again, there are a lot of universal values that we do share, and ultimately we all kind of want the same thing, which is we want like all of us as individuals to thrive. We also hope for a more peaceful world and for all of us to live in harmony. and to minimize suffering across the board. I think these are things that we all agree upon. And actually, youth today, we are also like very passionate about realizing these things. But we just need to recognize that there are changing circumstances. There's a different context right now that the youth are growing up in. And being able to empathize with this is quite important to be able to like bridge this divide, this seeming divide between between the generations. And I think moving forward, if we are able to cross this divide, I think that the possibilities are endless for intergenerational collaboration and for us all to work towards a better planet, better society.
Thank you so much, Yongsun. If you look at the messages right now, people say you guys rock. There's someone who said agree, Yongsong. Somebody already said we love you, Yongsong. So you already
Oh,
got a
really?
fan base. You never
Right.
know, right? You never know where opportunity brings. Like I said, you just have to be open. You may never know. Someone who's watching this from a law corporate office, hey, we want this guy for our future lawyer. You never know. You never know. Thank you thank you and all the best for your finals in another 2 years time, right? 1 year time, the bar
2 years.
exams and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's great to have you in Kopi with Vans, Yongsong. Thank you so much, and we stay connected. A lot of
Pleasure to-
more opportunities going to come in, like I mentioned earlier, backstage. So let's hope for that, and we will catch up real soon. Have a great weekend ahead. All right, we are already
Definitely.
now in Wednesday, so have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, and have a great week for you too.
Thank you so much, Youngsun. Thank you. All right, viewers. So that is Young Sun, a great speaker. I got to say, nowadays our youth, it's an amazing Young Sun. They're raising fourth year undergrad in law and liberal arts from Yale-NUS College, NUS Law. He has delivered a very beautiful presentation on the topic of what does the youth really want today. I mean, what does the youth of today truly want? He spoke in the aspect of a parent and as a youth and himself. We shared, right? I mean, I definitely learned. I really enjoyed in this particular segment of topic. So if you do have any questions or if you do want to engage Yongsun, you definitely can do that. Type in the comment section and we will be able to answer that for you. If time permits, I'm sure Yongsun will definitely will do that. We are also at Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you have missed it, you can always listen to them at any point of time. There's almost close to 150 old videos for the past 2.5 years, yes, of Kopi With Vans. It's all loaded there. So you can just listen it if you have a particular question. So if you can ask us, right? If you have any question, you can always ask me. And if you look at the Spotify and Apple podcasts, the best thing is that there's a lot of videos, or rather a lot of segments that was talked on health, like the liver, the pancreas, the lung, the heart, the brain, the eyes, the mouth, the ENT. We have literally covered everything. And as I spent these 2.5 years of hosting Kopi events and drinking lots of coffee, thanks to the pandemic, it made me addict. There was a point of time that I said, coffee is not good, but right now it's fine. Don't overdo it. Go for less sugar or no sugar. That is very important. I just get a last message here. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks, Yongsun, for the great sharing session. As a parent, just as a parent myself, I think we all need to let our kid or our youth go a little. Let them make mistakes, minor mistakes, but you got to monitor them. I think that's very important. That's very crucial. If we overly protect them, perhaps they may not able to face the real world once they step out. Like I always said, all dads are superheroes, all moms are, you know, those are Wonder Woman, they do extraordinary things for the kids. But we got to understand life is not just about education, it's about life skills. It is a both. You need paper qualifications, you need life skills. So we need to let them learn. Do not overly protect them, like what Yongsun has said. After a certain age, The parents know that he was responsible. He has the attitude. He has the behavior. They just stood back. They just stood back and said, you know what, go ahead. We'll support you. The kind of confidence, the kind of environment, I think is very important. Of course, youth also do a lot of mistakes. They are not angels as well. I also saying the parents also not angels, but as much as that parents take a lot of responsibility, they tend to push it over to the kids because they want the best for the kids. But then kids like, hey, you know what, or the youth like, you know what, I'm losing my youth. I'm supposed to be, go clubbing and doing things, but then they're not. They're also missing a lot of stuff. So it's always a balance that I call it. You put it so much over here, it just shoots up and then become totally unbalanced. So explore. At the end of the day, you can nurture them, but at the end of the day, they are going to face the life that is ahead of them. um, as usual, every Wednesday, 9 p.m., Kopi with Vans with a different topic. Um, Same environment. Yeah. And I'll catch you then. Till then, this is Vance. Have a good week. I keep on saying weekend. I don't know why. I think probably I'm living in the weekend right now. I'll catch you all soon next Wednesday, 9 p.m. live. Check out our podcast as well. Send it to your friends, send it to your families, anybody, who want to listen to it. Catch you then. Adios, amigos.